So you mentioned the one guy that said, "Hey, look, I'm not a snitch. I don't snitch." Did you run into guys that were snitches?
Oh, there was quite a few of those. I mean, once you tell them, look, man, you're looking at 5, 10 years, because when crack got the mandatory sentencing from the feds, it changed the whole playing field. Because now, if I buy four ounces of cocaine, they would probably be out on the street before I finish my paperwork. But if I get you for crack, 2 ounces of crack, and an ounce of crack is a mandatory 10 years, now they're willing to sing. And a lot of them, well, look, I can't do that kind of time. Well, you better start talking. You need to tell me something, because if not, you're looking at a minimum of 10 years. Okay. And this is federal time. You're not going to be where your family can come see you. You're going to be out in Minnesota where it's cold. Your family's not coming out there. So you can help yourself. You can help yourself. If you don't, I'm going to give you 5 minutes. Then you have to ask yourself, do you want to go? Do you want to talk to me? Do you want to go home, or you want to go to jail? Those are your options. I'll be back in 5 minutes. And that put a lot of weight on them to say, well, I'm going to tell you what I know. Well, that's how we got a lot of information.
Give me an example of a situation like that where somebody did snitch and it ended up being a big bust.
We, let's just say we went out and I sent somebody out and, go into this block and buy 4 vials of crack. And they would go out and do it. And maybe the next day we go back out and lock that person up and bring him into the unit and say, look, man, this is what you did. So I need to know where you getting your stash from or your supply from, so I can work a deal with him. I want to get that guy. Right now, you're going to look at state time, probably Graterford. Okay. You're going to get a couple years, but can you do a couple years? All you have to do is tell me, and maybe I can get you probation. You have to decide what you want to do. And he said, yeah, well, I'll introduce you to my boy so-and-so. He's the one I get my stuff from. I said, you introduce me as your cousin or somebody, and we'll take it from there. So the next week or two, that's how we would do it. This guy that we got locked up, he takes me to the next guy. This guy tells them, I want to buy some weight. I don't want caps. I want weight. I want ounces. Can you give me ounces of crack? So because he knows the guy that he's been selling to, he has credibility. So now that means I'm good because of the guy that hooked me up. So now the first person is out of the picture. Now I'm working with a bigger guy, a bigger fish. And we just keep going as far as we can to see how far we can go. And then eventually we come up, lock up the whole organization.
So with that situation, you guys were able to trace the crack?
We couldn't trace it, but we can identify certain members of it. And as long as we may never, ever get to where the cocaine came off the boat or who cooked it. May not ever get to that. Sometimes we did, sometimes we didn't. But as many people as we locked up, the bigger the organization it became. And the bigger the organization, the more court time. So if I start out with one person and we end up with 12 to 15, that's a good job. That's a good job. That means we cleaned up that whole neighborhood. So those people, mom and pop, that live in 2039 and 2032, they're not fearful anymore. They're not afraid, So that was rewarding to me anyway.
Let's talk about the state laws versus the federal laws, the laws against crack versus the laws against heroin and the laws against cocaine.
Mm-hmm. Okay, with local time, state time, okay, meaning you're going to go to Graterford or somewhere place like that when Graterford is open, you're not going to get a lot of time for drugs. Okay, you might get 2 to 3 if you don't have any priors or anything like that. Okay, but with the feds were just hard. The feds were just hard on you. So they changed their mandatory to an ounce or more crack cocaine was a mandatory 10 years. Okay, whereas if I buy an ounce of cocaine, they may get 2 years, 2.5 years. So in my mind, where do I have more leverage at getting somebody to flip? Tell them they're looking at 10 years or tell them they're looking at 2.5 years. Okay? Because of cracks, the intensity that was to make you want to come back for more. It's addictive. It's going to, if you don't have the money, you're going to break into some people's houses and burglarize the house, or you can go stick up somebody to get that money so you can get that crack. So at that point, I'm like, well, hey, look, I told the unit, no more state, no more city hall. Everything is federal now. Everything is federal. We're not buying anything less than an ounce of crack. Okay, because everybody we lock up now with an ounce of crack, they're looking at 10 years. They're going to flip. They're going to flip. And that was a very, very high arrest rate that we had. The conviction rate was almost 100%. And like I said, it was all about the overtime. So we were making some large money back in the 80s and the 90s.
Take me from being assigned to the DEA Federal Task Force to the elite unit.
Mm-hmm. The DEA was the elite unit because they were the federal unit. But before I got promoted, I was in narcotics. I worked for the DEA task force. So I was a cop there, and I was there for 19 months before I got promoted. And because of my experience in narcotics, they decided to leave me stay in the unit. So upon my promotion in 1990, I was assigned to special investigations, which was, at the time, it was an elite unit in the police department. But the ultimate goal was to get to a state or a federal task force. And I worked both of them. I worked with DEA and I worked the Bureau of Narcotic Investigations, which is a state task force. So when you did the state task force, we had the entire state. When I did the federal task force, we had anywhere. So basically we worked the East Coast, but when you get in the state task forces and the federal task forces, you have unlimited resources. So I can afford to say, I'm going to pay $10,000 for this and just take it. I'm not worried about getting it back. With the city, if you buy $200 worth of drugs, they want their money back. We're going to go lock them up. It was called a buy bust. We give it to you. I'm going to leave and go and lock the dude up, take the money from him, recover that money. All the bills are recorded. All the bills are marked. But with the feds, they didn't worry about it. That was chump change. There was no problem to let $10,000, $12,000 walk. They wouldn't worry about it.
Tell us about that shootout that you had with a high-level drug dealer.
January the 16th, 1991. I remember like it was yesterday. I was working with an informant. I had her on hand-to-hand buys of crack, and she decided to cooperate. She turned me on to the guy who was running an organization in Germantown. So the deal was, we're going to make arrangements to buy 1 ounce of crack cocaine. I want that 10-year mandatory on this guy. And we went into the area on January the 16th. And I recall it so vividly because as we were driving up to Germantown, the United States was bombing Iraq. Do you remember when they bombed Iraq? Mm-hmm. I remember because we had it on the radio. So I'll always remember that day. So it was me and my partner and this confidential informant. And we get up to Germantown. Now, we already scouted the area, did our homework. We know who we're looking at. We have undercover officers in the area, strategically placed. And the plan was, after I make this buy, I'm going to give him money. He's going to give me some drugs, and the backup units come in and arrest all of us. They're not to know that I'm a cop or my partner's a cop. And the deal went down. It was an older guy. He had to be, back then, he had to be late 50s. I was kind of surprised, but that's who I was buying from. So once the transaction took place and I gave him the money, the backup units rolled in, but they didn't roll in aggressive. They came in very passive, if you ask me. And it should have been an aggressive takedown, meaning everybody on the ground, guns out, everybody on the ground. Well, they didn't come in like that. They came in a little weak. All right, we're the police, get on the ground. And the guy thought it was a ripoff as opposed to believing they were actually police. So he pulls out a gun, and the backup officers to my left, they don't see this because I'm right in front of him. I'm on some steps. He's 3 steps above me. I'm on steps and my partner's on the sidewalk. He pulls out a gun looking at the backup officers, and I'm the only one that see him do that. So I pull out my gun. So now I become his threat because he sees me pulling my gun out. He's thinking this is a stick up. And he already has his gun out, and he points it at me and he fires. And I could see the bullet go past it was a tracer. I seen it go past me. And I returned fire. I fired 3 shots. And he went down. And as I started to take cover, my gun jammed. So I take cover to clear, and I look back, and my partner's on the ground. And I'm thinking he shot my partner. So by then, backup is coming from everywhere. DEA is coming in, and they just get on the scene. They just open up, and they were carrying MP5s, which is a mini machine gun, and it was on full automatic. He just cut loose. Blew out the windows, and there's people in this house. So the windows are getting shot out. They're jumping on the ground. I'm trying to clear my gun because I don't know what's the guy that I shot, and my partner's on the ground. It's like happening 100 miles an hour. I mean, the adrenaline is like crazy, but everything is in slow motion. So the guy goes down. I clear my gun. I come up to reload and shoot, and he's down. He said, my arm is hurting. So I get up, I kick the gun away from his hand, and I immediately tell backup, call for a rescue. This guy's been shot. He has to go to the hospital. And, he gets up, and we lock him up, take him to the hospital, and later find out that he passed away. Now, when I checked on my partner, he was right behind me. The bullet went in and out of his jacket, never touched his body. And when you're undercover, you're not wearing any vests. Right. So by the grace of God, we were both spared in that event because I didn't get hit, and the guy was 4 feet away from me, and the bullet went in my partner's jacket and never touched him. So God had his hand all over that experience. Mm-hmm. Okay. And with that being said, we got accommodations, awards from the feds, from the government, from the city. The highest award that you can get from the city is a valor. And they gave me that. The FOP gave me an award for that because I was engaged in a shootout with an armed felon. And, unfortunately that he passed away, but that was that January the 16th, 1991.
And I can see that date is like seared in your brain.
Oh yeah. It's not a month that goes by that I don't think about it.
I'm thinking about how close the narcotics guy was to you and that he missed.
Like I said, he was up on the porch. I was 3 steps beneath him on porches. So when he fired, he had to be about 5 feet away from me. Mm. And he pointed that gun right at my face. And I guess he pulled the trigger a little harder than he wanted, and it caused the bullet to veer past me. Mm. Otherwise, he probably would hit me square in my forehead. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But when he pulled it, it went past me. It went right past my ear and into my partner's jacket. And I thought he was dead. I thought he's on the ground. He's not moving. He shot. Basically what he did is he hit the ground when he heard the gunshot. And then I returned fire to 3 bullets, 3 shots before my gun jammed. Mm-hmm. So I had to clear my jam to rearm myself. And by that time, backup had came and started just blasting away. But he was already down.
You've been listening to Tell the Story, but stay tuned because there's so much more to come. That's coming up next.